Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Qi. Coming up in this edition, the ongoing COP29 aims to secure up to $1 trillion in annual financing to support climate action in developing countries. Leaders are gathering in Peru for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, with a key focus on addressing global challenges in equality, sustainability and trade. And Airshow China in the Chinese city of Zhuhai has attracted over 1,000 enterprises from 47 countries and regions. We begin with the 2024 UN Climate Change Conference. China's Special Envoy for Climate Change at the COP29 meetings in Azerbaijan has called for enhanced multilateral cooperation. The climate conference in Baku aims to reach a new climate change funding goal to replace the existing target of providing $100 billion annually from developed countries in support of developing countries. Leading the Chinese delegation, Liu Zhenming says he expects that participants can reach consensus on the series of key topics.
Given the significant shifts in the current international landscape, there is widespread concern about the support for multilateral cooperation on climate change by developed countries, following the US elections and the elections in EU member states and the European Parliament. The pressure of a global economic downturn remains substantial. Yet, cooperation among nations is imperative and indispensable. Therefore, we hope that countries can demonstrate their firm commitment to supporting multilateralism and multilateral cooperation on climate change through COP29.
COP29 is aiming to achieve a deal of up to $1 trillion in annual financing to help developing countries with climate action. Other items on the agenda include the implementation of the agreement from last year to transition away from fossil fuels. Radhika Bajaj reports from Baku.
Climate finance very much in focus at the opening press conference. The UN climate chiefs, time and style, mentioning that climate change is impacting each individual on this planet. President from Azerbaijan, Minister Babayev, once again bringing climate finance into focus. The target this year, that's the ask of scientists, is $1 trillion a year. The other big piece of the agenda would be the loss and damage fund. Who should contribute? How much should they contribute? There is also talk of finalizing international rules and regulations for carbon credits. Another important piece on the agenda is updated nationally determined targets by all countries.
That was Radhika Bajaj on discussions at the UN Climate Conference in Azerbaijan. Turning to South America, global leaders are gathering in Peru for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. Trade and investment for inclusive and interconnected growth is at the forefront of the agenda. Alistair Baverstock has more from Lima.
Well, hello from Lima, Peru, where the APEC meeting is just getting underway over the next 7 days. And it's APEC, since its real inception in the late 1980s, the stated goal of this leaders' meeting and the organization as a whole has been free trade throughout the Pacific region, a region which currently represents more than 60% of the total GDP globally. Free trade, though, has never been realized fully within APEC economies, specifically because the United States has always resisted it. So what do we have today? Well, since 1998, we've had what's called the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. So that is one major free trade agreement which exists in this area, but lacking a broader APEC Pacific free trade deal. How does more fluid trade happen on a bigger scale around the Pacific? Well, it happens piecemeal. So let me give you an example. Mexico, for example, is part of the CPTPP. So it has trade directly with Australia and reduced tariffs. But Mexico is also part of the USMCA. So that's the updated NAFTA. It has North American free trade with the United States and Canada. And it's also part of the Pacific Alliance with Colombia, Peru, and Chile. So if products are coming from Australia, for example, or Vietnam, they enter into Mexico through the CPTPP, and then depending on the rules of origin of each individual trade deal, which Mexico has with other partners in the region, products which are then in Mexico can then advance with lower tariffs into places like Peru, the United States, and even Central America. These APEC free trade deals are going to be pieced together like a jigsaw puzzle around the region. But it's meetings like this at APEC, these leaders' meetings, where these steps are taken towards greater free trade within this region, which, as I mentioned, represents more than 60% of global GDP, more than $50 trillion.
That is Alastair Baverstock reporting from Lima. Before world leaders arrive in Peru for the APEC meetings, business representatives from the 21 member economies have attended an APEC Business Advisory Council. It aims to tackle global challenges in equality, sustainability and trade together. Michelle Begu has more from Lima.
We were at the inauguration of the Business Advisory Council. This is the only non-government entity with an official role in APEC leaders' meetings. Business leaders meet in 200 different events in 5 different cities in Peru, and they give their advice as to what needs to be done to really open up trade and have this cooperation between businesses and governments. And what they're talking about is that there are 4 main challenges. They're saying that there are trade barriers, digital transformation, sustainability, and social inclusion. What does this mean? I mean, sustainability. There's a climate crisis going on. What can businesses do to be more sustainable? Social inclusion. They talk about especially the informal economy in countries in Latin America, where we know that almost more than half of people who work in this economy work in the informal sector. They need to be formalized and brought into the economy to have more development and have these businesses grow. And so what many of the business leaders at this inauguration were saying is that there's a lot of bureaucracy sometimes. There's going to be finally a formal document that they're going to then present to APEC leaders, and they hope that this will all be incorporated into the APEC agenda.
That was Michelle Begu in Lima. In the Middle East, Palestinian medics have said an Israeli airstrike killed 7 people at a coffee house near the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis. Earlier on Monday, Israeli forces sent tanks to the Nuseirat refugee camp in central Gaza from the west, sparking panic among residents and displaced families. Rami Amagari has more from Gaza.
This is the first ever large-scale Israeli tanks incursion into the Nuseirat refugee camp, mainly to the west of Nuseirat refugee camp, opposite to the camp itself, which is populated by tens of thousands of Palestinians. Israeli helicopters and Israeli warplanes, Israeli quadcopters and drones have been involved in the shootouts against the populated areas. One of the shells hit a house or an apartment in one of the buildings near a mosque, a local mosque that is surrounded by populated homes, inhabited homes in the Nuseirat refugee camp itself. This comes in addition to previous Israeli incursions and Israeli army actions to the northwest of the Nuseirat refugee camp, and it is apparent that the Israeli army is somehow expanding an area or a buffer zone into the northern parts of the Nuseirat refugee camp that is close to the Netzarim junction or the Netzarim area in which the Israeli army has been positioning for the past few or several months. That is the situation is still tense in the Nuseirat refugee camp, with Israeli drones, Israeli helicopters participating in the shootouts against the population. One of the shells reportedly hit the Al-Auda hospital in the heart of the Nuseirat refugee camp, which is a key hospital that receives majority of the injuries, casualties that occur in the Nuseirat itself. This is regarding the Nuseirat, and actually there was a strike to the west of Nuseirat on a tent in west of Nuseirat to the coastal area, leaving one Palestinian killed and his children injured, and this Palestinian is said to be a journalist.
That was Rami Amagari on the latest developments in the Middle East conflict. Finally, in Asia, the 15th China International Aviation and Airspace Exhibition, also known as Airshow China, has opened in the southern city of Zhuhai. The event showcases some of the latest Chinese aircraft, including new fighter jet, the J-35A. Over 1,000 enterprises from 47 countries and regions are participating. Zheng Songwu tells us about some of the other highlights.
Well, the sixth-day event includes aerobatic performances of aircraft, demonstrations of weapons, aircraft, drones, vessels, as well as high-tech on display, both indoors and outdoors. And since its launch in 1996, the Airshow China has been one of the top 5 air shows worldwide. And of course, for most people, the most breathtaking event in the air show is that aerobatic performances of aircraft. And this year, people can enjoy 4 hours of performances every day until Sunday. The fifth, you can hear the engine, and we can also see the excitement of the people. And with the 5th generation fighter jet Su-57, which is a big surprise for aircraft lovers. And all these outstanding aerobatic teams will perform different maneuvers such as wing over and a diamond shape flying, as well as opposing knife edge passes, which mean that the fighter jets will fly to each other vertically, so the wings can be tilted and the top side could be visible to the people on the ground. And all these movements can help the pilots to learn fight swiftly and efficiently if ever in a battlefield.
That was Zheng Songwu on Airshow China in Zhuhai. Now recapping the headlines, the ongoing COP29 UN climate conference aims to secure up to $1 trillion in annual financing to support climate action in developing countries. Global leaders are gathering in Peru for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, with a key focus on addressing global challenges in equality, sustainability and trade. An Airshow China in the southern city of Zhuhai has attracted over 1,000 enterprises from 47 countries and regions. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news and magazine program. We would welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Xi Zhi. Thank you for listening.